Okay, when I last visited with you, we were talking about Plato's cave allegory. And from that, we're going to be moving on, but at least do you have the implication of what Plato was talking about? Because it's going to be in assignments. And I want to emphasize this assignments, area in assignments, it just has one due date, and that is 1010. Just one due date, and that is 1010. And in tests and quizzes for the first half of the text, just one due date, and that is 1010. And then we will start on the second half of the semester. I think this is great because I know that you folks want to work ahead. You're energetic. You're motivated. You are ready to go. And if I put in a bunch of due dates, it's just going to slow you down. So this way, the due dates have been removed and you can just go ahead and work at your pace as long as it's a fast pace. Now, there are due dates. Yes, there are due dates in form, but they're generous due dates. And you can go in there and submit. And if you haven't looked it over, you can look it over and look at the generous due dates. This section on chapter 1 has taken a number of videos. There will not be this many videos probably in the remaining chapters. But in order to cover this, in order to get a basis to see where we have come from, what we are doing today, and some of the procedures, some of the process have been used up into the 19th century, talking about Hippocrates. Hippocrates, living around 400 BC, right in that area there, recognized that people were different, and he developed a theories of personality based on four humors: the black bile, the yellow bile, phlegm, and blood. And of course, they used the seasons to classify individuals into four groups, and various other type things that they use to group these individuals. The directions were used. So even at that time, around 400 BC, Hippocrates had an understanding of people. Matter of fact, he was confronted with a child that was having problems, and Hippocrates says, hey, take the kid out of the family and he'll probably be all right. Now, that was kind of interesting to have that understanding, that along with Plato's understanding of the cave. Well, Galen then built on Hippocrates' thought, and Galen lived in the first century AD, and it was kind of interesting with Galen because he thought that a fire resided in the heart and that there was an actual flame there. And what he would do if someone was near their deathbed, he would open them up and jerk out their heart. But he thought then, since he didn't see a flame, that he was doing it too slowly. So he lined up some slaves. It's not funny, but it's kind of interesting with the thought. I realize that. He lined up some slaves and he wanted to jerk out their heart and then see the flame. Well, some of his ideas, not the idea of cutting out the heart, but some of his other thoughts, even with Hippocrates, dividing personalities up into four groups, we are still using today in Myers-Briggs. Basically, they have four groups. If you've ever taken it, they have 8 types, but those 8 types are put into 4 groups. And so even today, what Hippocrates did 400 BC, we are still employing that in our personality assessments today as one tool. That we certainly have more than that as far as assessing the personality, but as one tool. Now, what is interesting is now we're coming into the area where we see a connection between the mind and the brain. We're seeing more and more of this. syphilis was one thing that, or one aspect that really started to bring this out. We have others, and we're going to visit with them, but syphilis brought this out. Now, we're going to talk about the different types of therapies. There's about 400. Maybe there's even more. There's the birthing therapy. And the birthing therapy maintains that an individual's problem is a result of the way they came down the birth canal. So if they would be returned in a simulated type approach, if they would be returned to the birth canal experience, it may go ahead and change the behavior of the misbehaving child. So this is the way and the process that it took. They would wrap a youngster up. I remember one incident, a 10-year-old girl. They wrapped up a 10-year-old girl in a sheet, tight, very tightly. And then they put blankets around it, wrapped it up them very tightly, because we have to have a good snug fit, because this is therapy. This is birthing therapy. And so we want to go ahead and simulate that as close as possible. This is taking place today in places. Okay. Then, after they got the child wrapped up, then 4 people would sit on the child. Now, we have a 10-year-old girl weighing, what, 50, 60 pounds, depending on various factors. But let's say 50 or 60 pounds. 4 people, on an average of 150 pounds. I'm just guessing as far as the average is concerned. But 4 people weighing 150 pounds equals 600 pounds. So after all of these blankets and these sheets were put around this individual, you think about claustrophobia, but after all of these blankets and sheets were put around this individual, and then they would sit on her, and of course the girl was saying, I can't breathe. You've got to let me out. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Well, then with 600 pounds of weight on her, suddenly her behavior absolutely changed. So, hey, they looked at one another and they said, you see, this birthing approach works. And then they went ahead and unwrapped the blankets, unwrapped the sheets, and there she was. She was dead. That's approach. That's an approach that people take. And they believe that these approaches work. Remember, birthing, going back to being born, sliding down the birthing canal. All right, we're going to talk about the different types of therapy. Again, we have hot and cold water. They take individuals, they string them with their hands above their head, and they spray them with cold water or hot water. You see, we're still looking at witches and demons and voodoo and trying to drive this out of the individual. Still looking at trephining, cutting a hole in the skull or rubbing a hole in the skull. There was nothing to cut with. What you found was a rock, and you just rub a person's skull until you got down to their brain, and then that would allow the demons out. Various mystical rituals. We still have some of them with us today. And it doesn't surprise me when I hear some of the home remedies. It almost sounds like a ritual. Okay, then we have an appeal to a higher power. And, there's nothing wrong with that. That is taking place. In Hippocrates' time, he thought that when women act up, it is because they had in their body a uterus that was wandering around looking for a child. That's why they became hysterical. So one of the things that took place then, as a result of this, in order to get the uterus in position correctly, there would be a fumigation of the vagina. Now, I don't know what they fumigated it with. I'm not even going to go there. But these are some of the procedures that work. Incidentally, the hysterical women, this being blamed on the uterus searching for a child, and now we have the term hysterectomy. Well, we have music, aroma, art. Art therapy is wonderful. And we'll start with bloodletting on our next video. So I will be back with the video. In the meantime, check over due dates, plan ahead. This first half of the semester is going to go very rapidly, as time does, and I think you are aware of this. So plan ahead so we can get everything completed that we want to get completed. So until video E comes along, have a good day.